This summer, Johnsonville reminds everyone to get their sausage family together to enjoy some plump, juicy brats around the grill. Because at Johnsonville, we don't make sausage, we make family and sausage.
National League Central rivals go head-to-head this weekend when the Pirates face the Cubs at Wrigley.
Swing and a miss, he struck him out.
The pregame at 3 Eastern, first pitch at 4. Saturday on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNRadio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, it's Greeny. Thank you for checking out the Best of Mike and Mike podcast, what we have for you from Friday. Plenty of coverage of day one of the Masters. We debate how late is too late in the NBA's lifestyle, plus his and hers with Mike and Mike talking golf, the NBA, and a whole lot more.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
You know, I'm sitting there, was going back, watching the Masters yesterday, going back in time to when I was 21 years old, senior at college, getting ready for the draft,
Of course.
working out hard. Every now and then, you know, you want to relax a little bit. Go out to the Notre Dame golf course there. You know, maybe, you know.
Throw down a few.
Not really there. I don't really encourage that there on campus.
I understand.
But you know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
You know where I'm going.
Sure.
As a 21-year-old, knocking it around. And then you watch Jordan Spieth.
No, he's tremendous.
He's 21 years old. And do what he's doing.
I can't take a lot of credit for that prediction because everyone had that prediction.
It's incredible when you see him play, but then think now that the youngest to shoot the round that he did, beating Rory by a couple of months. It's just when you kind of put it into that context. I know athletes are getting better, younger and younger. I get all that, but when you watch it and you see the other great players that are around and how long they've been playing, and this, what does he have, 5 rounds now or whatever it is?
All under par.
At the Masters.
That was the first one under 70.
And never lower than 12th after a round. It really is something else.
He's now the overwhelming favorite to win this year's Masters. He is now 9-4. Tiger Woods, after shooting one over yesterday, slipped from 15-1 to 60-1. I think there was some encouraging signs for Tiger, to be honest with you, because he hit some just terrible shots. I mean,
he did.
Absolutely. He hit one that actually went sideways.
Yeah, it did.
Which has, considering the fact that there was a time when he was considered to be the greatest player that ever lived.
Yeah.
It was sort of comforting.
I just thought he was trying to bring that one around a little bit.
Yeah, it didn't quite make it all the way around. Jordan Spieth, however, was sensational yesterday. Shot a 64, one shy of the major championship scoring record for 18 holes. He had a real shot at one point in the day to make a run at 62.
Yeah, well, he was 8 under. What he had 8 birdies through 14, and then he birdied that 15th, and that kind of
bogeyed.
I'm sorry, bogeyed 15th, and that took him out of the running for that. But boy, oh boy, was that fun to watch.
He is the 4th player to shoot 64 or better in the opening round at the Masters. The last to do it was Greg Norman in his ill-fated 1996.
Yeah.
But I'm always fascinated as one who loves the sport and plays the sport on a terrible level. To hear when guys are playing as well as he is playing, to hear what was going on in their minds while it was happening.
You know, when I was there on 15, I was in between hybrid and 4-iron, and I knew if I could birdie there and get one more in, I get to 10 on the day. And I've never shot 10 under in a professional round in my life, and obviously here that'd be pretty special. And unfortunately, I took the wrong club there and hit it over the green, made bogey. But 8 under out here, nothing to complain about. There was no number other than about then where anything came to mind. I didn't really know where it was, how many under par I was on 13, 14 there. Just kind of in the zone and hitting some shots, and then I saw the scoreboard and tried to maybe push it a little bit.
Well, I mean, obviously this guy's career is going downhill now. He starts letting that get into his head. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
He's tremendous. I mean, he's so talented.
He's obviously making a bit of a joke there. I mean, but that is interesting that he was thinking about that. You hear of other athletes in other sports. Are they chasing a record? And a lot of them, depending on the sport, say they don't really know it at the time. You don't know how many maybe yards you have receiving or rushing or points you may have at one point on the court. Some don't buy that, and some say that you find that out and you know. But then do you go for it? That was very interesting, I thought, that he knew, all the time you hear about staying in the moment. Remember the one you've told the story a few times about Tiger Woods asking about a bigger issue during a round, and he's telling you how the green is breaking, right? You stay in the old stay in the moment
thing. It's the process, yeah.
Right.
All the golfers will tell you should be focused on the process,
and Jordan
not the
wasn't
result.
there.
No,
and Jordan wasn't there.
And he made a bogey. And immediately he made a bogey on a par 5.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
It's just, maybe that's youthful exuberance of, wow, look where I am. I'm hitting well. boy, it's in my mind what I can get to, and that quickly it can cost you. Now, certainly he's got a big lead, but that is kind of interesting where that mental part kind of comes into it.
Yeah, a big lead, but as they always say, you can lose the Masters on Thursday. You can't win it. That's true of any golf tournament, of course. And so he's got to put together another round. He puts together another round like that today. I was watching Scott Van Pelt and Andy North talking about it. He could run away from the field and hide, but it's unlikely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys, the leaderboard is sensational.
Yes, it is.
Jason Day's not going to go away. A lot of those guys, Ernie Els got off to a very good start.
Yes, he did.
Mickelson's in the mix, and obviously Tiger Woods. We're Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. You can test drive Snapshot to see how much you could save before switching to Progressive. Visit progressive.com/snapshot. Golf is such a crazy game that everyone thought that the big concern about Tiger, he can't chip. Yesterday, that was pretty much all he could do. He hit the fairways.
He did, 10
and then
14,
he got himself up and down in spots. What he used to be the best in the world at doing was what they call in golf grinding.
Yeah.
Was when you don't put yourself in position to make birdies, still not letting the round get away from you and shooting a number. And what he's been struggling doing lately. And I saw Andy North say that sometimes when you don't feel right physically, when you've been in physical pain, as Tiger has been for a variety of reasons recently, that becomes the hard part. You kind of lose the will to grind it out when everything is not feeling smooth. Whether that's an excuse or not, that's what Andy North was saying. Tiger, from everything we are aware of, feels better. You saw a couple of flashes of emotion from him yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Yes, you did.
He'll always set, Twitter aflame. Whatever it is you may think of that is fine. But I actually thought, despite the number that you write down on the card at the end of the day, it was not that discouraging of a day for Tiger. And if he goes out there and could you see him going out there and shooting 70 today? If he does, he could be in the mix. Now, Spieth could run away and hide, or one of these other guys could, but Tiger could put himself into the mix with a good round today.
He could, but, what he's lacking, and listen, it's certainly shouldn't be any kind of a secret, anything startling, consistency right now. I was more watching him play yesterday, and I have said I want him to make, even though we have a little wager, I want him to make it to the weekend. But as I was watching yesterday, I thought there was more of a chance of him going on a bad streak than a good streak. Now, it turns out he stayed right in the middle. He'd do bad, then he'd do good, and that's kind of how it went back and forth to his one over. But I kept thinking, if I think he's going to lean one way, it's going to be he lets a few more shots get away from him, and all of a sudden now maybe he's 2 over or 3 over instead of getting to even or 1 under. I thought it was going to go that way, but he held it in the middle. As you said, as we talked about, hit the fairways. His chipping and putting certainly didn't cost him a whole lot, but boy, some of his other shots, he saw a little bit of the golf course.
Yeah, he hit some crazy shots yesterday. I mean, crazy bad. He had one crazy good shot also on 7, but at the end of the day, I will stay with my prediction. Tiger, I believe he's going to make the cut. Do I think he's going to contend at this point? I think it's extraordinarily unlikely. Here, quickly, Andy North's thoughts on Tiger Woods' first round.
I thought the fact that he really ground the round out. He could have had a lot of other things go wrong. He made some great pitches and chips, which everybody was worrying about. Made some great par saves and made a couple of really good bogey saves. So, all in all, I think at the end of the day, he's reasonably satisfied with how it went.
Yeah, that was the sense that I got also. When you saw him after after our coverage was over, they went to Lindsay doing SportsCenter, and she sends it back out to Van Pelt and Andy, and they were talking for a while, and there was only one person left on the driving range, and that was Tiger.
Yeah.
So he was out there working, and he had a smile on his face. He was with some coaches and whomever it is. He's out there with a couple of guys, and he was laughing and all that. I think Tiger is going to be fine. I think he's going to. I still believe he's going to make the cut. I do not think he's going to be in contention on Sunday. There's just too many guys that are playing too well. We will go live to Augusta coming up in about 20 minutes and get Jason Sobel's thoughts on what to expect today, weather, and all the rest of that. Of course, Day 2 coverage of the Masters again on ESPN this afternoon starts 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Meanwhile, coming up in just the next few minutes, great news. I mean great news for you, for me, and all of you. Everybody listening and watching right now. I have great news for you.
Okay.
And it's coming up in just the next few minutes on Mike and Mike. The next 60 seconds for Scott's. How many people do you think will call in sick this week, Mike? Could be in the thousands. Workers all over the country experiencing an epidemic with the long, cold winter we've had. There's a bad case of spring fever going around.
Opening day baseball, gang, and around the league, you got to be ecstatic. Even in Minnesota, you scored a run. Be happy about that. So that's mean, and I apologize. But opening day is exciting. The excitement, the anticipation, those smell of hot dogs and fresh cut grass. Well, what if I told you that your lawn could be as healthy and look as good as the fields do on opening day? You can start by feeding and eliminating weeds with Scott's Turf Builder Weed and Feed. It knocks out weeds like dandelion and clover. It gives your lawn the nutrients it needs to be thick and healthy. Send in the star player this season, and that's Scott's Turf Builder Weed and Feed. Weed your lawn and feed it. Scott's the official lawn care company, Major League Baseball. Play the Go Yard Challenge for the chance to win a trip for 4 to the World Series this year. See official rules at scotts.com/go yard. No purchase necessary. It ends on May 31st of this year.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Mike Tirico today, Kenny the Jet Smith. NBA playoffs are right around the corner. All of them on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Live at Augusta with Jason Sobel in a few minutes. Great news for all of you listening and watching right now, and the two of us. Coming up in just a few minutes. But first off, Mike, basically the entire Kentucky team went pro yesterday. You heard it in the open there, the way Calipari set it up. He basically lined them all up on a stage and said, anyone who's going pro, stand up. And it took like a second. They all kind of didn't, they're all looking at each other. I don't know if he had planned it with them or not, so I think they were all confused, like, does he really want us to stand up? Yeah. And then, of course, they all stood up. So 7 Kentucky players are going pro, announcing it yesterday, including Willie Cauley-Stein and Karl Anthony Towns, who will both be lottery picks. They will lose 86% of their scoring, 75% of their rebounding, block shots, and three-point field goals from the team that went 38-1 this year. And the hilarious thing about it is that they are projected to be the number 1 team in the country next year in the preseason rankings, because there are still like 7 top 100 recruits who haven't announced where they're going. Yeah. And as Jay Williams was tweeting yesterday, no coincidence that they've been waiting, because every one of them has Kentucky on their list.
7 of the top 20 prospects in ESPN.
Of the top 20, excuse me.
7
not top 100.
Of the top 20. 7 of the top 20. So basically the best of the best coming out of high school have not committed, and I think there's a good reason why a decent amount of them haven't committed. They were waiting to see. You kind of knew the givens that were going to go, but you wanted to see who else was going to go. So now 7 players leave. You know what that is? And there were, I think, 3 seniors as well. A lot of spots opening up for some quick playing time, and we saw how it worked this year. They really spread out the playing time. No one lost their minds in scoring. The highest was one of the Harrison twins with 11 points. That's the leading scorer. So you're splitting it between 8 points and 11 points, basically between those 7 guys. So now you get, out of those 7 high school All-Americans left, I'm going to put the number at 5. At least 5 end up going to Kentucky.
Well, and he already has 3.
Yeah, exactly.
He already has 3 commits.
Yeah.
So he just needs a handful more, 2 more, and obviously he's loaded again. Going back to his first class at Kentucky, 2010, John Calipari's first class, he has had 18 players selected in the draft. No other team has more than 11. Kansas has 11, Duke has 9, Syracuse has 8, Kentucky has 18. And to your point about distributing the scoring, I believe Karl Anthony Towns is going to be the first pick in the draft. The projections that we got from Chad Ford and all these guys just put him, quote, top 5. That obviously is a safe way of looking at it. Yeah. I think most people think he's going to go 1, at worst 2. Yeah. The lowest scoring average, fewest points per game in the final college season of a number 1 overall pick was Anthony Davis of Kentucky a few years ago, who averaged 14 points a game. Karl Anthony Towns averaged 10. So by a wide margin, he would be the lowest scoring player to go number 1 in the draft.
I'm not looking at it. I mean, these guys have all split time.
Right. No, I'm saying, I think it's a testament to what they were willing to do, and the fact that it still works. When I think these high school All-Americans were talking about that Karl Anthony Towns still goes number 1, they'll be able to recognize, look, you can do what he's preaching. You can share the load. You can share the responsibility. You get all the attention in the world. You get in the tournament. You have a chance to win a championship. And you can still go number 1. They used to jokingly say Dean Smith was the only guy who could hold Michael Jordan under 20 points. And frankly, they said it as a criticism in a lot of cases. Anthony Davis, 14.2 points. Karl Anthony Towns is going to be the first pick in the draft. He scored 10 points a game this year, and I bet you he'll project to score twice that in the play.
I agree. He played just over 21 minutes a game this year, and it goes to show that in a lot of sports, from college to pro, you don't necessarily look at the numbers. And we've talked about this before. You look at how does their game project, how does their size, the way they play, how does it project to the next level, and I'd say Towns projects pretty darn well.
Actually, if you look at the 4 lowest scoring averages, the 4 guys who had the fewest points per game in their final college season before being the number 1 pick in the draft.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great group. Obviously, they're all number 1 picks. 2 of them played for Calipari, right? So it's Anthony Davis in 2012, who averaged 14.2 points. Patrick Ewing in 85, who averaged 14.5 points. Derrick Rose, who played for Cal at Memphis, averaged 14.9. And then James Worthy from Carolina, who came out after that 82 season. He was on a team with Jordan and Sam Perkins. So, you know, people recognize, the NBA recognizes the great talented players. Kentucky is just going to reload, and they will be right back at the top of the heap next year.
They really were. To me, one of the amazing stats of that is the 7 All-Americans still left out of the top 20 that haven't committed for whatever reason, and certainly one of the reasons I am fully confident in saying it was to wait and see how many guys were going to leave Kentucky, because even though you understand and you see that they split time, there's still, you want to play. You know, you want to play, and you want to be careful how much of your time is going to be split.
Especially if you're a one-and-done-minded person. Where do these guys project to go? Just quickly, according to Chad Ford, he has Karl Anthony Towns top 5, Willie Cauley-Stein top 10, Trey Lyles and Devin Booker mid-first round, Dakari Johnson late first, and the Harrison twins second round or potentially even undrafted. So you may ask yourself, well, why would the Harrison twins go out? I think the answer is, are they going to improve their stock?
I think are they going to? That's the first thought you think in draftable sports is, can you improve your stock? Can you improve your draft position? And, you know, they may be at a point where no, they think that's not going to happen.
Go and take your shot. I think most people think they're pros, that they'll both wind up in the league, that they're the worst that'll happen, and you say this with air quotes, is, you know, you wind up going and playing overseas someplace. But if he's going to have 5 more McDonald's All-Americans coming in, what would make anyone think if the Harrison twins stayed 1 more year? Well, next year they're top 10 picks. It's not going to work that way.
It does not work that way.
They came back this year, took a shot at undefeated, took a shot at a championship, didn't work out.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense
for them.
Go in,
get in the league if you can, start your clock if you can, and if you do better than some project, then more power to you. If you keep in score at home, the 7 players, there's 3 freshmen, 3 sophomores, and 1 junior.
As far as the guys who are going pro.
The guys who are leaving,
not counting the seniors on their roster. All right, I have great news, absolutely great news for all of us. I found this on Twitter. It was tweeted at 4:24 a.m., and I think that's significant.
I was up.
To the story.
Yeah.
You were up. I was up.
Yeah.
Many of you listening to us may be up.
Probably were up.
All of us in this studio were up, and that is good news for all of us. Everyone who thinks to themselves, my goodness, I've got a job that I have to wake up so early in the morning and I hate it, that alarm goes off and I curse and I feel terrible and all the rest of that, and everyone in my life feels sorry for me. Oh, my goodness, you get up so early in the morning, 3 o'clock, 3:15, 3:30. According to a new study that was done by Korean researchers, the old Benjamin Franklin adage, early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Right.
Well, they can't confirm wealthy or wise, but they can confirm healthy. The good news is, according to a research study done in Korea, is that based on a variety of things that they found, including glucose tolerance, body composition, waist size, and any number of other things, people who describe themselves as morning people, and there actually is a quiz you can take that will see if you are a morning person or a night owl. Morning persons, or morning people, are markedly healthier. Markedly, demonstrably healthier in the areas, again, of glucose tolerance, body composition, waist size, any number of things, less likely to have diabetes, less likely to have metabolic syndrome, high blood sugar, all this kind of stuff. And most of it has to do with, and I'm not going to bore you with the details. I'll tweet it. You can read it if you want. Most of it has to do actually with when you eat. And the later in the day you eat, thus the later you're staying up at night, the later you eat, the worse it's
going to be for you.
But, again, let's not bury the lead.
No, let's not.
The good news is we're going to live forever.
We're going to live forever.
We are healthy.
You know what's great? In our whole group here, obviously we have a big group here that all get up early. There are the outliers, the ones that really don't. And obviously our guy that really isn't part of this is Bubba. I mean, because he's neither healthy, wealthy, nor wise.
No. Well, I mean, of the 3, which would you say? Of the 3. You know, I guess if we were to divide the staff up into healthier, wealthier, or wisest, you know, we'd have some struggles.
Oh, we would.
I mean, to figure out where people
mostly
fit.
In the wealthy and wise.
But the good news is we are going to be healthy. That is. I
do like that a lot.
I'm actually I'm hitting retweet as we speak. So if you're interested in reading all the details, and you can take a quiz that will determine whether you are a night owl or a morning person. And by the way, that is not defined by when you wake up. Because there are some people whose body clock, whose metabolism and all that is not meant to be a morning person, but, you know, their professional circumstances require them to be. So you can take the quiz.
So does it say anything about number of hours of sleep at all?
No, it's not so much about how much you sleep as when you do.
Okay.
And the questions on the quiz are things like, how alert do you feel during the first half hour that you wake up? How hungry do you feel in the first half hour? Those kinds of things. I just put it up on Twitter, at ESPN
I do
Greeny.
like that.
But if you're up and listening to us now, we recognize there are many of you right now who have just come home from working a night shift and you're winding down before you go to sleep, watching or listening to us.
Yeah.
We apologize.
For those of you, that's a different story.
The news on this study is not quite as good.
This article is not about you.
It's not. But for whatever it's worth, it is an interesting little study. And for those of us who are morning people, and I actually am, not only do I wake up early, but I actually fit the criteria of a morning person.
I'm going to have to take that test.
I'm going to do that. Well, let me see how many questions there were on this thing. There's not that many. We have time to do it. We'll do it in this hour.
I like that. And the other thing you talked about, I think, is key about getting up when you say you're mad and you swear because you get up early. There's another one as well. When the wife doesn't want you to leave. You know what I'm talking about?
I wish I did.
No. Mike, don't go. I'm not ready for you to leave yet. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
You know what I mean?
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
I know.
Not happening in my house. I'm just wondering if it happened somewhere else.
Those are the days that you're 2 or 3 minutes late.
Yeah.
All right, so anyway, it's up on Twitter, at ESPN Greeny. If you want to see it, I just retweeted it from the New York Times. And we'll do the quiz in this hour. But if you're a morning person, it's good news.
Yeah.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
Guys, when you buy your clothes at DXL, you look good. But you feel like a rock star. So if you want to look and feel like you'll find all the brands you love, waist size 38 and up, all in one awesome store. DXL, you're looking good. Right now, select dress shirts are just $49.50 each when you buy 2 or more.
Mike and Mike.
There's a fascinating story. I got it from the New York Times Twitter feed. I retweeted if you want to do it. It's up at ESPN Greeny. You can do the quiz along with us. And basically, there was a study done by Korean researchers that suggests that being a morning person comes with a variety of health benefits versus being what they describe as a night owl. And I jokingly said, well, this is great news for all of us because we're all up so early. Right. Now, 2 things. A, I'm aware that a lot of people have just worked a late-night shift and have come home and are watching us on TV or listening to us on the radio.
Using us to go to sleep.
But more significant, which, listen, I mean, people have been doing it 15 years.
Whatever works.
We've put more people to sleep than anybody in America. But that said, there is also, it really is not so much about what time you get up,
right,
as whether you are genuinely not a night owl or a morning person. Okay. So I'm going to give you the quiz. We're going to go through it quickly. 1, there are 8 questions. How alert do you feel during the first half hour after you wake up in the morning? Not at all alert, slightly alert, fairly alert, very alert.
Fairly alert.
Fairly alert, okay. Number 2, how hungry do you feel during the first half hour after you wake up? Not at all, slightly, fairly, or very?
Hungry.
So, very?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a very good sign for you. I'm that too. A friend wants to exercise with you during the week, and the best time for him is between 6 and 7 a.m. Bearing in mind nothing but your own internal clock, do you think you would perform very poorly, reasonably, or well?
I think I would perform, once it got going, I think I would perform well. I would rather work out in the morning.
You would. So well
absolutely.
Or reasonably?
Let's say reasonably.
Reasonably. Okay. You want to be at your peak performance for a test you know is going to be mentally exhausting and will last 2 hours. You're free to plan your day, considering only your internal clock. Which of these times would you want to take it? 8 to 10 a.m., 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., 3 to 5 p.m., 7 to 9 p.m.
Without question, 8 to 10.
First thing in the morning?
Without question.
You're acing this test. If you went to bed at 10 p.m., how tired would you be? Not at all, a little, fairly, or very?
A little, because that's about when I go to bed anyway.
Okay, yeah, obviously, that's one where our work hours skew the equation.
Right.
If there's a specific time at which you get up in the morning, to what extent are you dependent on being woken by an alarm clock? Very dependent, fairly, slightly, or not at all?
Slightly.
Yeah. Only slightly?
Only slightly.
Okay. 2 more. For some reason, you've gone to bed several hours later than usual, but there's no need to get up at any particular time the next morning. Which of the following is most likely? You'll wake up later than usual. You'll wake up at the usual time and then go back to sleep. You'll wake up at the usual time and doze. You'll wake up at the usual time and not go back to sleep.
Usual time and doze.
Okay. One more. Do you consider yourself a morning or evening type of person?
Without question, a morning person.
Okay, a morning.
Even before I was doing this,
okay.
I'm a morning person.
So we now see your score. Your score is 23, which is rise and shine. You tend to be a morning person, like to rise relatively early and not stay up too late. You don't cope very well when your pattern is disrupted. You are a morning person, Mike, and that is excellent news.
I am a morning person. When you said 23, it scared me. I started flashing back to test scores.
No, it's not graded that way. Okay. No, it's not done on the curve. No, that's actually a very good score.
All right, good.
Again, all this is up on the New York Times. I tweeted it at ESPN Greeny if you're interested. Okay. I was fascinated by what Frank Vogel said. First of all, there was this horrible event that took place outside a New York nightclub at 4 o'clock in the morning that involved several NBA players being injured in various ways, including Chris Copeland, the former Knick, now Indiana Pacer, who was in town that night. Was in town. This was late Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, 4 a.m. They had a game at the Garden Wednesday night. There was an event that took place that involved him getting stabbed. Now, he is expected to recover fully and all the rest of that.
Right.
And there's any number of different topics that stem from this. But what Frank Vogel, his coach, said really interested me. Because when Chris Copeland issued his apology about being there in the first place, he mentioned that he was I want to apologize to everyone for my bad choice at being out at that time. Mm-hmm. Here's what Frank Vogel said. I agree with him that it was a bad choice. We don't condone our players being out that late. We treat our players with respect and trust them to make smart decisions for the franchise and for themselves. Obviously, being out that late puts him in position to be in harm's way. It puts him at risk. Certainly, our organization doesn't condone our guys being out that late. It could have been worse. Thankfully, he's all right. Now, we all understand that in society today, young people are out very late, clubs, that kind of thing, professional athletes.
And if you're in a sport where you're in a city for more than one day, a la baseball, and could be basketball, that when the games end at night, now I'm not saying this situation, but in the normal situation, from what I hear from players and talking to them, when a game ends late and they're going to be around that they don't have anything the next day, it takes them a little while to wind down and they'll stay out. That's their time when they can go out. They don't get out until late. By the time the game's over, you shower up, you do your post game and everything, you don't get out till sometimes after midnight.
It's midnight by the time you walk in.
So these guys, 3 hours out, all of a sudden it's after 3 o'clock and we're saying, oh my God, this is way too late. Now, that seems to certainly happen in those situations. This is different. Correct?
Yeah.
They got a game that next day, and he's out at 4 in the morning?
Right.
And they have a game later that night?
Just to give a sense of what the average, again, this would I would say be the normal schedule for a professional basketball team on the road. They will have a morning shoot-around.
Right.
Somewhere, when I covered the Bulls, their morning shoot-arounds were usually around 10 a.m., a little walk through it goes about an hour. It's not very taxing physically. Then basically the whole team goes back to the hotel and takes a nap. Mm-hmm. They'll sleep for a couple hours in the afternoon, then go back to the arena, something in the neighborhood of 2 hours before game time. So this is not. I do not think it is. First of all, there were 3 NBA players at this club when it happened.
Right.
It is not outside the norm. Certainly not every player, but it's not totally outside the norm. Is it unprofessional, would be my question to you.
Well, I do think it, yes. I before a game, absolutely. Now, because, again, is it different when a guy, by the time he's done with everything, it's midnight, and he wants to head out with a few of his buddies, and they stay out till 4? You know what? It's a bit late to me, but listen, I'm not their dad.
Right.
And
that's the thing. Is that Frank Vogel? That's what I'm asking.
They're grown men.
Right.
You would think during a season, guys still like to blow off a little steam, but there is no doubt the later you are out, let's be honest, the more chance something is going to happen.
Right.
I do get that. The night before a game, not a chance. I'm stunned you'd be out that late. Now, again, guys live.
You come from such a different sport, though.
Without question.
Your night before a game and their night before a game. They have 82 nights before a game.
But the unprofessionalism in football is it's basically understood. Thursday night, guys will go out. Friday night, you're not really supposed to be out late. That 2 nights before the game thing, and guys will. Guys will stay out till, as some guys will, and that is considered in my sport. That Friday, certainly not Saturday, the night before a game would be ridiculous. Friday night out to a 3 or 4 o'clock would be, in football, in my opinion, considered unprofessional.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
All right, we're presented by Progressive Insurance and his and hers. are in the house. You see them every day, noon Eastern on ESPN2. Jemele Hill and Michael Smith are here. The T-shirts are always phenomenal. That's what it was. Yesterday, I was watching you guys. I saw about the last 15 minutes of his and hers, and you were pointing out that you made a reference to your T-shirt collection being superior to her T-shirt collection.
Oh, yeah, it was in the context of Marshawn Lynch. I'm here so I don't get fined T-shirts. I want one. She doesn't.
I want one. He doesn't.
What do you mean I don't?
You said you don't want a Marshawn Lynch T-shirt. You rip him to shreds all the time. He played us all.
Here's what goes on in our relationship. You don't listen to me.
What?
Exactly. I never said. You know what I'm saying? I never said I didn't want the shirt. I have no problem him selling his shirts. My whole issue was the whole issue of him not talking completely. So I'll wear a hat. I'll wear the shirt. I have no problem getting those things.
Well, I'm with Golic, though, in the sense that I had a problem with that entire shenanigans that he put on, because ultimately it was about marketing. Like, everybody out there wants to make him like he's a revolutionary and he's fighting the man. No, he's trying to make money. That's what this is all about.
But I don't have a problem with that. That's what all the players are there to do for Media Day, in particular Media Day. They've turned Media Day. What are the media doing? Right? I mean, how many actual people are there to cover the football versus people in wedding dresses and all sorts of stuff trying to get attention?
We agree.
So why shouldn't he?
Again, you're not listening. What? We are saying that's fine, but as she said, and as I said, as his and her says, that it's just too many people made it out like, oh, he shouldn't have to talk. That part of the topic, it was ridiculous.
His and his thinks
it's ridiculous, that conversation.
Why? Because we don't agree with you?
Because it's ridiculous that's what we're making it think. You know what? You go to the Super Bowl, yes, very trying to talk for 5 minutes.
Oh, my God, I'm such a great running back.
I hope
don't ask me questions about that.
Oh, this is what we're gonna fight about, whether we should talk for 10 minutes.
So the outcome of the game, perhaps the fate of humanity as we know it, rests on Marshawn Lynch's articulate answers?
No,
who cares? Walk away. Let it go. Why are we doing it? Why are we entertaining it?
That I agree with. I agree with it.
Walk away.
That the reporter should have and I said it, should have absolutely walked away. But I got a little tired of, he doesn't want to talk. Don't make him talk.
Look at him fighting the man. Look at him sticking it to the establishment.
By the way, Marshawn Lynch is a very smart guy. I don't think he
smart guy.
I don't think he sat there with the intention of saying, hey, you know what? I'm about to make a T-shirt out of this. Like, it evolved into something.
Completely disagree.
I know. I do too.
You think he set up the night before and said, what can I say? I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Absolutely worked it.
Once it became a thing, he worked it, but not in the moment. In the moment, he was being sincere. Sincerely difficult, but sincere.
Oh, yeah, that's why he just so happened to drop that little diatribe when he did during Media Day. He's not going to talk, but I'm going to go off about how I'm not talking.
Shout out to all my real Africans.
And here's what
that was awesome. I'm not going to let y'all take that moment from me. That was an awesome moment in Super Bowl history.
And then the unreal Africans, where are they? I'm like, okay.
Here's what I'd say, as a longtime veteran of this media thing, that it has now all evolved to a place where we are all playing a game, right? That whole thing has become a game. There's no journalism being practiced there. Everyone's got their part in the game. So those reporters who are over there entertaining that, they're part of the game. Marshawn Lynch is playing the game. Everyone is there playing the game.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Either recognize your role in the game or step back.
Get down or lay down.
The whole idea, and there's legendary pictures of Joe Namath sitting by the pool in Miami and like 5 reporters sitting around him while he's sitting there in a bathing suit.
That was the guarantee, right?
Anymore. Yeah, that was the year of the guarantee.
I agree. The journalism is different, and Marshawn worked everybody.
Okay, let's move on. We have an hour with you guys, and yet it always goes by too fast. So one of the things we just had, one of the questions Bubba asked us in Love It or Shove It, is Derek Fisher, the coach of the Knicks, said he could see the team going worst to first next year, and he asked whether we loved it or shoved it. And I want to read you guys the quotes from him. Derek Fisher says he thinks the Knicks can win 63 games next year. And you look at the possible, first-round pick they might get. They have a ton of cap room. Not sure if they'll be able to use it on any real difference-making players. They're going to get Carmelo Anthony back. And so I look at that thing, and then I look over here. Matt Barnes says that there is a misconception out there about the Lakers. This whole idea that players don't want to go there because they're intimidated by Kobe, he says it's not true. He told Sports Illustrated's Chris Ballard, the reason people don't want to go to the Lakers is because of management. Kobe can be the scapegoat all they want, but if you play hard, Kobe likes you. And if you fool around. I cleaned that up. He doesn't. It's plain and simple. He's not a vocal leader. He just expects you to play hard every minute on the court like he does. So he's saying it's about the management. The management isn't changing. Whenever Kobe retires, that's not changing. Right. So let's go to this. Which team turns it around faster? You got two marquee NBA franchises, one with a history of success, one with overwhelmingly a history of failure on the two coasts. Jemele, I'll give you first crack at it. Which one of them turns it around in a real way more quickly?
I'm going to say the Lakers. Weather is very important, obviously, in this equation. But he said management. I don't think it's everybody in management that people have an issue with, because they do have a saving grace. That's Jeannie Buss. And I think at least the impression that I've received is that Jeannie Buss is very well liked, very well respected among a lot of players and a lot of people in the NBA. She's already put her brother on the clock and said, if you don't turn this around by this amount of time, I'm taking over. And I think a lot of people feel like she should have been the one spearheading all of this from the start, but she was trying to sort of, she was trying to kind of stand by something that her father wanted, which was for Jim Buss to be more deeply involved in the organization. So I see their way out. With the Knicks and Phil Jackson, and it's funny we're talking about both these teams given the link between Jeannie and Phil, is that I think there has just been much more of a destructive image put out about that franchise. I don't think that players are clamoring to play in New York. This idea that everybody needs a big market, I don't think that's the case anymore. I think players create their own markets wherever they are. Kevin Durant has created his own market in Oklahoma City. Now, would it be bigger in New York? Yeah, sure, you can say that. But LeBron James has proven the market follows him. And I think by him going home and him still remaining as prominent as he has been, that has provided a blueprint for a lot of players. So all that being said, I think the Lakers, they remain an attractive option. They've done it more recently in terms of championship. There's a certain legacy there. I think they turn it around first.
Completely agree. I agree on just about everything, especially the thing about Jeannie saying, Jim, get this right or you're out. I feel like I'm in my own house. Mike, you have one chance to get this right, or I'm taking over. That's kind of how it works. But I've been saying that, and Greeny and I disagree a bit on it. I don't think you need a big city to play anymore. I don't think you have to go about that. But if you're asking me what's a better destination point at some point for a big-time free agent, I'll say L.A. We talk about Jim Buss, and then we talk about Phil Jackson with the Knicks. Phil Jackson with the Knicks is not a coach anymore. I don't know if he's looked at the same in his management position by players to say, yeah, I'm going to come there for Phil when he's not coaching. You know what could be the overriding thing in New York? Who don't people like for the Knicks? The owner. Yeah. That supersedes, I think, even Phil Jackson at this point. You have a superstar that's about to that has another year or two in L.A., and that's Kobe. You have a superstar in Carmelo, who may only have that as well if they trade him. If not, he can be around, and you can build around him. I get it. But all in all, destination point to me, I think it will be the Lakers over the Knicks.
Yeah, I've always said that it goes money, market, money management, then market when it comes to priorities for players. Some may put management in a chance to win ahead of money, but for the most part, it's going to be about the money, which, as we know, the Knicks have a lot of to spend.
But can be equal, though, right? This is one sport where it can be equal. You can get offered the max anywhere, and it's equal.
Well, yeah, especially if, you're changing teams and the rules.
But not that many teams have the salary cap space available to them.
This is what we're talking about. We're talking about the stars here going to one of the teams, so we're probably talking about
not necessarily the stars, just the right team. I mean, everything you said about James Dolan still hovering over the franchise is true, but I think Phil Jackson does bring a certain amount of credibility. I'm not going to say like Pat Riley when he brought the big three together. Not the same thing, obviously not. Doesn't have the track record as an executive, but still some cachet. Can still, sell people on a vision. I think in many ways the Lakers will be selling the past and a glorious, rich history, whereas the Knicks can sell a pretty bright future with Carmelo returning healthy, a top draft pick like a Karl Anthony Towns or Jahlil Okafor, and the right players, maybe not stars, but the right players. The question is, and I heard you earlier, Greeny, mention it, is Fisher the right guy to bring it all together?
I mean, that we won't know for a while, obviously. You got to give him a chance. Right now he's coaching a team that Red Auerbach wouldn't win with. The unrestricted free agents this summer are LaMarcus Aldridge, Rajon Rondo, Marcus Gasol.
Nope.
DeAndre Jordan.
Nope.
Greg Monroe.
Yep.
And Paul Millsap.
Monroe could go to New York.
And I agree with you. I think we're selling short Phil as a salesman a little. I think Phil Jackson still does walk into a room with, more rings than fingers. And that is a difference. Yeah, but it has to make a difference.
He knows what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of people saw Michael Jordan try this.
He's a pretty, yeah, but he's a.
One of the greatest ever. He tried his hand, and not everything works. Larry Bird, working, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, he's unproven,
Right.
but when he talks, people still listen.
I guess my point is, I feel we've written him off before he's had a chance.
Right.
You know, he hasn't really had a chance. Year one was about tearing it down.
Right.
He's done that. So now I feel like we're writing Phil off before he's really started attacking
I don't mean
Yeah.
to write him off. But I think you guys are going too far in saying people still that he's E.F. Hutton. When he speaks, everybody stops to listen. And I don't know, as a management position, if players are listening the same way as if they knew Phil was sitting courtside coaching.
He's a good talker, though. I mean, he's a person that you listen, you sort of want to listen to.
And I like what I've heard from him recently, which is that, hey, we're not going to go out and put all our eggs in the basket that is a superstar player like they did for LeBron back in 2010. We're going to get the right players to build the right kind of team.
The best of Mike and Mike.
As a longtime veteran of this media thing, that it has now all evolved to a place where we are all playing a game, right? That whole thing has become a game.
Yep.
There's no journalism being practiced there. So those reporters who are over there entertaining that, they're part of the game.
Yeah.
Marshawn Lynch is playing the game. Everyone is there playing the game.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Either recognize your role in the game or step back.
Get down or lay down.
I love it. Mike and Mike over here. I think I finally got a Mike making some sense. Michael Smith, Jemele Hill, his and hers, every day, ESPN2 at noon Eastern Time. Quickly, there's a packet on Steph Curry. He had a huge night. A lot of people are sort of describing last night as his MVP exclamation point for the season. Now, and there are a bunch of different statistics. He had 45 points and 10 assists last night. If teams win 67 games, which they might do, like 9 teams in NBA history have won that many. 7 times the league MVP came from that team. Rice Webb did a poll of experts. 52% said he should win the award. 80% said he will win the award. Let me ask you guys all this.
Interesting.
We know there's going to be these Players' Choice Awards this year for the first time. Now, they've done that in baseball for years.
Yep.
We used to announce them on Mike and Mike. Remember the Baseball Players Association?
Doesn't hockey do it too, if I'm not mistaken?
They may. We'll check that. I know for sure the MLBPA did their own awards because we used to announce them on Mike and Mike. So Steph Curry's going to win it. We all have our different views. I know you guys disagree.
I do believe he's going to win it. I would have no problem if Harden was the winner at all, but I think Steph is going to win it.
Right. When the players vote, and they'll announce it in July, who do you think they'll vote for?
I think the players will vote for Steph, too.
I agree.
I think the players will vote for Steph because, look, a lot of guys are deserving. Even Anthony Davis, an MVP candidate in his own right, said he would pick James Harden. Maybe more players will vote for Harden than media will vote for Harden at this point. Some players will vote for LeBron.
That's what I was about to say.
We know if LeBron could vote, he would vote for him. We know that.
He said he would.
But, and I've argued for Harden all year long. But Steph Curry.
You argue for everybody all year long.
I just made it more of a race than you did.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's just put it that way. I went all the way down the ballot.
Yes, you did.
So anyway,
Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook. You went through every possible.
There are a lot of deserving guys, but Steph Curry has it all. His team has the best record, and he's had as good an individual season as anybody. You can't take anything away from him, and he is more than deserving of winning the award. I'd have no argument for it. But I don't take back saying that Harden was just as deserving, given what he means to his team.
I agree. I said I would have voted for Harden. I think you and we agreed on that. But I could. If we come in here and say Steph Curry won it, I'm fine. If we come in here and Harden won it, it's not like I would say.
It wouldn't be criminal.
Oh, my God, what an unbelievable upset.
It wouldn't be something where you say, oh, they got that one wrong. But getting back to how the players vote, Mike and I had this argument yesterday on air about
discussion.
It was sort of argument. I won. That's all you need to know.
What a couple.
So about how players, how there's, depending on who you talk to, there's such a different definition of MVP. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason why I think LeBron will get a lot of votes, he's had a really good individual season for LeBron. Maybe it's a little bit down, but players maybe they might look at it as, okay, who in the league would you start a team with? Who in the league that if that player was not on that team, where would they finish? So for them, I think it might mean more than just an individual season. Yeah. And I would not be surprised if Steph Curry won it, and I don't know how much of a listing we will get, but if LeBron finished like second, I wouldn't be shocked.
You mean among the players or among the media?
No, the players.
That's where I was going when I was setting up the topic.
Yeah.
I will be fascinated to see how many of the players vote for LeBron.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah,
when Jordan was playing, he was the best player every year.
Yeah,
and
we're talking about LeBron.
They needed to give it to other people.
Same with Shaq.
If the players were voting, I think the players would have voted Jordan the MVP every single year. And so
unless they got tired of it.
Yeah, well, but this is their first time doing it.
Yeah.
I would not be stunned if LeBron wins or it comes real close to the players.
I don't think so. I think Curry. I think
the King still has the crown when it comes to best player. And whether it was LeBron, whether it was Michael Jordan in his day, Shaq in his day, every year those were the guys that you knew if you put them on any team, they're instant title favorites. So we saw with LeBron this year. Now, he has not had the best individual season this year. That would be Curry, that would be Harden, that'd be Westbrook perhaps, that'd be Anthony Davis. But in terms of the guy who is the best player, that's still LeBron James.
Not only that, but how about his impact? Cleveland was the worst team in the league, and now they're the favorite, maybe the favorite to win the championship, and they're going to finish second. I mean, look at the number of wins.
It's a fair question to ask because with voting, it's fatigue of voting the best player all the time, like a Jordan or like a LeBron. But with players doing it now,
they have no reason to be fatigued. They haven't voted yet.
I'll say this real quick. Say 60% vote for Curry to win the MVP. I would say polled, the same 60% would say, if asked if Golden State wins the conference or not, they say no.
You think that San Antonio?
I just think they say no. If you get the question, is Golden State going to win the conference or not, I think that the majority would say no.
The best of Mike and Mike.
His and hers, Michael Smith and Jemele Hill are here with their Subway Fresh Take. Will be for about the next 20 minutes or so. You see them noon Eastern Time every day on ESPN2. Mike Tirico and a whole lot more today coming from the Masters. By now, perhaps most are aware, if you are anywhere online, of the passing of Lauryn Hill, who was an inspirational figure to so many over the last few months. For those who don't recall, Lauryn Hill was the Mount St. Joseph's women's basketball player who was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor in late 2013. And the dramatic way that she chose to live the last year or so of her life inspired so many people. She died last night at the age of 19. She was a native of Greendale, Indiana. She was diagnosed with a form of brain cancer during her senior year of high school. Her dream was to play college basketball. She did wind up going to Division III Mount St. Joseph's, which is located near Cincinnati. She played in a game. People will remember the layups for Lauren and so much. It was an inspirational story. And one of the things that I'm seeing people tweet about her is that in her 20 years, she accomplished a lot more than many people do in 80. So,
well, what she was able to do by reaching her goal of playing in college and then what she turned it all into, so much more than just herself. The foundation, The Cure, starts now. They've raised, over $1.5 million for cancer research, and just the lives she's touched. I remember all the colleges that sent in the number 22 jerseys, and she signed them all. I know my wife immediately bought the Notre Dame one that was sent in. I mean, it was such a moving experience, and everybody wanted to help. But as Greeny said, how she and everybody has a right to choose how they want to handle that situation. There is no wrong answer at all. But the way she handled it as publicly as she did, the interviews that she did, and how it was out there to help others was nothing short of inspiring, and that's how it should be remembered.
Yeah, she was very brave. I mean, she exceeded some of the expectations that they had in terms of how she was going to live or how long, rather, that she would live. And so I think, Greeny, you said it best. I mean, when we think about the totality of our lives, a lot of us don't have the kind of impact that she had in such a short period of time. And I think that's, for me, the most inspiring takeaway from it all is that, they often say it. Sometimes stories like this remind us further, but tomorrow is not promised to any of us. And while we're here, we would generally all be in a better place and make this a better place if we sort of took on her courage, bravery, and just her fight and will. So that's what I'll take away from her.
Yeah, she had been in hospice since December, I believe, so just glad that she gets to be at rest. And, I pray that her family experiences peace, during this time. I think about Leah Still, Devin Still's kid, and what a miracle that has been. And, her cancer seems to be in remission, and she's doing well. But, this is the other side of it. But we'll never forget her, that's for sure. As you guys have pointed out, she made quite an impact in her short time. And hopefully she's, She was comfortable in her last days, and as comfortable as possible, and now she's at peace.
We live in a world where now people, in 20 years ago, many people would be thinking of her today now, in the world in which we live, people can express their thoughts about how much she meant. And in some ways, it is, as sad a day as this is, it's a beautiful thing to see the tributes that are flying from everywhere right now, all over social media, with people expressing what her battle, what her courage meant to them. And I thank God I've never been in this position, but I think if I were her family, I think that would make me feel good. I think that would bring me,
I would
as
agree.
you said, some measure of peace this morning to see how many people her life touched.
Exactly. Obviously, the sadness that the parents and the siblings go through, but I agree. To see and to read and to hear all the great things people are saying about her. But you also bring up a sobering thought as well, Michael, about, Leah Still. What a great story. I mean, how many of us didn't tear up when you see an Instagram, of her smiling, with Devin. But this is the other side of it. That was, right now, it's a happy side of it. And they help raise money for cancer research, so we don't have to have the bad stories. And this is a sad story. Again, she's inspired and helped so many, but still we lost someone way, way too young. This is why we continue the fight. We continue to try and stop this from happening.
I'm hearing Stewart's voice in my head.
I was just going to bring him up. It reminds me of Stewart.
She beat cancer, how she lived.
Yeah, he talked about that when he gave that terrific ESPY speech about how it's the manner in which she lived. And I think we can all draw a lot of inspiration from that.
Yeah, every day I fight. She fought her way, and, again, our thoughts are with her family today and all those who loved her. And if you take a minute today to think about her and the courage that it takes for a 19-year-old girl, 18 at the time, to be told that she had inoperable brain cancer, and to choose to live, again, in the dramatic and meaningful fashion and inspirational fashion that she did. That takes courage that most of us could probably never fathom. So our thoughts are certainly with Lauryn Hill and her family on this day. We are Mike and Mike. There's really no graceful way to segue from that to anything else. But, of course, the world of sports is what we are here to discuss. The Masters continuing. Jordan Spieth, magnificent yesterday. Tiger Woods, we'll see. I thought, all things considered, based around the way that he played yesterday, I thought his score was actually pretty good. And potentially set himself up for a decent round today, get himself into the weekend, and then you never know what might happen.
What did you guys think? I wanted him to make it through the weekend. Neither one of us thought he was going to contend. I wanted him to play through the weekend, but we had a little wager. I said I don't think he'll make the cut, even though in this tournament it's a little easier, might be the wrong word. There's, 97 golfers and 7 amateurs and some older professionals out there. But I didn't think he would make the cut. Greeny thought he did. What were your guys' expectations going into it?
Well, mine were low, and it was interesting. We talked about this as well yesterday on the show about whether there was still any pressure on Tiger Woods, because we've seen how he's played recently, and, he took, 63 days off. We know the shape his game was in when he took his layoff, and it wasn't very good. But yet he's still Tiger Woods, and so there's maybe a built-in pressure that comes with that. But I thought for him, given historically what he's done and what he's accomplished, that this was a situation where, honestly, it would be a win if he doesn't get cut. And I guess in a way that's sort of surreal to even say, because this is somebody still remains in the conversation to some small degree about best golfer ever, but that's where the expectations have lowered for him, is that if he can just complete a tournament, I think he should see that as kind of a starting point.
Well, completing it around pain-free and in a good mental frame of mind, I thought was a win for him. If I had to grade it, I give him a B+, if not an A- if I want to be generous, all things considered. I mean, he drove it fairly well. His short game looked improved. He had some opportunities, but most important, he just battled. He's withdrawn. He's missed some cuts. He got frustrated at times, let out a few expletives here and there, but he scrambled, he battled, and he has to feel good about it. He needs to make the cut, though. All that's for nothing if he misses the cut. I think he's got a really good shot at it, but contending, no. But like we talked about yesterday, Jemele, there's inherent pressure every time he takes the course, because he still is regarded as one of the greatest golfers of all time, and he's still Tiger Woods, even though he's 104th in the world right now. Expectations, though, were minimal, but I think he even exceeded those yesterday, because a lot of people would not have been surprised if he had just been a total disaster after such a long layoff.
And it's worth reminding, again, 11 months ago, he was ranked number 1 in the world. It isn't that long ago. So could he reclaim that? It's certainly possible. And there's a great generation of young players between McIlroy and Spieth and others to watch. So we'll all see what happens today. Again, the coverage on ESPN 3 o'clock Eastern time. I really want to get you two guys to chime in on something Mike and I were talking about earlier this morning. And that was this event at a nightclub in Manhattan the other night that involved 3 different NBA players. And there are a variety of different stories that come from it from a basketball standpoint. And that's obviously low on the list of concerns when people are seriously injured, or in the case of Chris Copeland, stabbed. But Thabo Sefolosha is going to miss the playoffs, and he's an important player on the Hawks who probably, if they play Cleveland, would have been the guy guarding LeBron more than anyone else. So that's the basketball side of this. But Chris Copeland from the Pacers, again, this was an event that took place 4 o'clock in the morning outside a nightclub in Manhattan. When he issued his apology, his statement included a thanks to all the fans and friends and teammates for their support and their prayers. And he said, I want to apologize to everyone, particularly the NBA and the Pacers, for my bad choice at being out at that time. Frank Vogel, his coach, in addressing the incident said, I agree with him that it was a bad choice. We don't condone our players being out that late. We treat our players with respect and trust them to make smart decisions for the franchise and for themselves. Obviously, being out that late puts them in position to be in harm's way. It puts them at risk. Certainly, our organization doesn't condone our guys being out that late. It could have been worse. Thankfully, he's all right. So I find myself thinking this all the time. Now, look, people are at nightclubs at 4 o'clock in the morning all the time, and most of them aren't NBA players, and most of them, nothing bad happens, and they go about their lives the next day. Is it inherently, in the world in which we live, the society in which we live today, is it an unprofessional act, in your opinion, Jemele Hill, for an NBA player to be at a nightclub in Manhattan at 4 o'clock in the morning?
Well, I struggle with this because, nightclubs, for one, in New York, that's a different scene than it is in most other places. They tend to stay open 4 or 5 a.m., much later. And I don't think there's anything wrong with a professional athlete going to a club, enjoying themselves, blowing off some steam, however you want to put it, as long as it does not interfere with their professional lives. Now, of course, when he went to the club, he wasn't thinking I'm going to get stabbed, or he wasn't thinking there was going to be some kind of incident that would cost his team one of their more valuable players. So I think the intent, I would like to think, was just to have a good time. And that's the problem when you're a professional athlete, is that you can't move the way everybody else moves. You're just by the nature, even if they don't know your name, they see that you're tall, they see you're some kind of athlete, and you instantly become some target for something. So it's almost like you have to protect yourself against everyone else, their intentions, and not your own. I mean, I've had this rule for years. I can't say I've stuck to it 100%, but I'm going to say 95% of the time I have. Don't be there when the club closes. You don't want to be the one shutting the party down, because a lot of times when
that's when fights happen.
That's when fights happen. You have a mass
security pushing everybody
you have
out.
A mass crowd of people. They come out, someone bumps somebody, and it's a lot of confusion. Somebody talks to some girl, and they don't like y'all. You're looking at him.
Testosterone tends to rear its ugly head.
Everybody's been drinking all night. Yeah. The people there that are there at that time, they've been drinking all night the longest.
We did close down a DirecTV party.
Okay, but see, that's different.
I mean, we were like the last ones out of there.
Yeah, but that's different.
Also Mark Cuban.
Okay, exactly. That's different, because you know why? That's a different environment. It's an exclusive party. Yeah. It's not open to the public. So there's the Super Bowl rule, which is different. But that's also why at the Super Bowl, I don't tend to go to parties that are open to the public. These are invite-only VIP invitations, because you have a room full of people where everybody has something to lose. So everybody's going to be on their best behavior.
No, look, it's not unprofessional as long as you can still play at a high level. I mean, this is a once-in-a-while thing that we hear about this. There are plenty of players that are out all the time. We never hear about anything happening. So I wouldn't call it unprofessional, so long as it doesn't affect his performance. In terms of the apology, though, guys, I appreciate the apology, but it wasn't necessary, because I don't blame him for getting stabbed. Again, without knowing all the particulars of what exactly happened, it wasn't his fault that he was attacked.
He apologized for being out as late as he was.
And I understand why he apologized. That's why I say I appreciate the apology, because if I were in that position, and like if I were to go out tonight, today's Friday, right? If I were to go out tonight and stay out till 4 o'clock in the morning, and something went down, I'd be kicking myself too. I'd be like, why was I there? Because the old saying is very few things, if anything, happens good after midnight. So the older I get, the more washed I get, the more tired I get. I find myself hanging out a lot less because of reasons just like that.
Here's the difference where I'll disagree about the unprofessional. If you go out and say...
No, I'm saying it's not unprofessional.
Right, no, I know. Oh, okay. And I am saying in this instance it is, and here's the reason why. You go out and stay out till 4 o'clock tonight. What do you have to do tomorrow?
I got to work.
You got a show tomorrow?
Well, I don't have a show tomorrow. I got to take my kids to a Taekwondo tournament, but...
my point is, you have to go to work.
No,
you don't. Copeland, this wasn't after a game. They had a game that night. He's out till 4 o'clock and had a game that night. To me, that crosses the unprofessional line. In baseball and basketball, I get it's different that, as I said earlier, by the time your game ends, if it's after a game, it ends by the time you can get on maybe midnight. So you may be out till 3 or 4 after a game. I get that, and I can't say I have a problem with it at all. Where I have a problem is if you're out that late the night before a game. Now, to your point, so it's different than after a game, which you're blowing off a little steam. You don't have a game the next day.
Okay. Sometimes they do, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
This was 4 o'clock in the morning, and they had a game later that night. That to me is a little different.
But what if you show up and handle your business? I mean, does it matter? What if he doesn't get stabbed and he shows up and he drops 15 points and 10 rebounds?
There are absolutely those that will say he's a grown man. If he can handle his business, it shouldn't matter at all. And I agree with that. You're asking me just the look of it. I'm out till 4 in the morning the night before a game. I'm not a fan of that.
Okay. Well, there's two separate things about that. There's are you not going to be operating at your optimal level if you're out at 4 o'clock in the morning the next day? Right. The other is, we all know that, I mean, I remember Tony Kornheiser once reading a story of this kind on the air back when he used to host the show nationally. He said, no one, if you take out the word club and insert the word library, this never happened. You never hear, someone got into an incident at 4 o'clock in the morning in a library. Yeah. So just being in a place where you know trouble can be. The other side of the story that I find interesting, and again, it's been a really long time since I traveled with and covered an NBA team. I can tell you for sure that most of the time when I was covering an NBA team in the 90s, those guys weren't in bed at 2, 3 in the morning at all.
No.
They'd come to shoot around, they'd go back to the hotel, and they'd sleep for 4 or 5 hours in the afternoon. Right. That was sort of the rhythm of their lives. Right. Yeah. And that was one of the best teams of all time.
And I get that, absolutely.
And there's another part of the story I thought interesting, however. Vogel said the team encourages the players to use the traveling security when they go out. In larger, more active markets like New York and L.A., the Pacers generally travel with 2 security personnel. However, more often than not, the players venture out on the town by themselves without the protection of a bodyguard. Copeland elected not to use team security when he was out Wednesday morning. Now, Jemele, you began the conversation by saying, to some degree, these guys, if only based upon the fact that they're so much taller than everyone else. I mean, Mike and I, when we go around together, I get recognized so much more when I'm with you than when I'm not, if only because Mike is 6'5", so when a 6'5" person walks by, you just automatically look. So what do you make of that? They have the opportunity, they have the option. The team is providing security to the team desperately wants things like this not to happen. Do you think it is, for lack of a better word, unprofessional to be at a club at 4 o'clock in the morning, someone has offered to send security with you, and you have circumvented that?
Well, they fall victim to how a lot of us think. It's never going to happen to me.
But did this involve people that he knew?
Yeah, well,
I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure the exact details if it did. I mean, I know he was obviously with people that he knew.
Yeah,
I don't know if
I don't think this was something where somebody saw him as like, oh, that's a basketball player.
Oh, no.
They go mess with him.
No.
They pull his car.
But no matter what happens, no matter how it happens, if you've got security with you, the chances of something bad happening, let's just put this into a blanket, the chances of something bad happening to you are diminished if you have security with you.
Don't worry about it.
Well, and my thought on that is, if sometimes players, who are these security hired by?
The team.
The team. So guess what else they can do? They can kind of tell the team
they don't want someone babysitting them.
You don't want someone, not only babysitting, but seeing what's going on. Not to say that people are doing illegal things out there, but they don't want extra eyes on them, even though in this day and age of social media, there are a lot of people out there seeing
everybody's
those guys,
a reporter.
And that picture could be out there in a day. But I don't think they want them brought with them, people that could maybe, there is definitely, Jemele, because I said this all the time, a whole lot of, oh, that's horrible what happened there, but it ain't going to happen to me.
Yeah.
That's everywhere.
That's everybody.
But then maybe you don't want those extra eyes on you, because we know those extra eyes may report, which I think, listen, if you just want to go out and have a good time, I think it's certainly smart to have some guys in the periph on the outside. If anything goes down, that they're going to come in.
Well, if we're on the subject of professionalism, I mean, I'm just curious about, you mentioned Thabo Sefolosha being out. I mean, the behavior on the part of law enforcement. Look, again, I know what they're accused of doing here in Antage, what they're accused of doing in terms of obstructing justice or whatever. But I mean, it looked like, once again, a little too much excessive force.
Right, especially at this time in our country where that's been a constant conversation. But here's the thing, though, that if you do bring team security, and you talk to a lot of these guys and they'll tell you, they just want to go out and have a normal experience, okay? And I get it that sometimes it is hard to reconcile the fact that given what you do, you cannot have a normal experience like everyone else. And so if you have security, maybe that attracts more attention, and people look at you like, oh, he must think he's a really big deal. And who is he to have those people around you? So in many respects, you can't win either way. So I don't blame him for not exercising that option, because again, he is going out with the intention to just have a good time, and not. He's probably done it tons of other cities. In this city in particular, because it was a Knick. So he's probably thinking, people know me here, I'm okay.
I guess my reaction to that, though, I understand what you're saying, is you have to accept the totality of the experience, which is to say, you want to be an NBA player, you want all the wonderful things that go along with that. Well, here's the bad news. You're not a normal person anymore, right? You can't just go places like everyone else can and disappear into the woodwork, because people are going to notice you. And if it means you have to take some precautions that you would prefer not to, unfortunately, them's the rules of the game, and if you don't want to, certainly the pros are way outlisting the cons of being an NBA player and making millions of dollars and all the rest of that. So it's a complicated situation. Here's a little bit of the Twitter reaction that we got to this. Peter tweeted, doesn't matter if you're an athlete or not, before game day or not, nothing good ever happens at a club at 4 a.m. Justin tweeted, grown men with money are going to go out. Maybe he put himself in a bad situation, but he's the victim of a crime here, not the criminal. Big Bad Bone tweets at us, drunken brawls happen to everyone. This story deserves no coverage. Again, it deserves coverage because of what wound up happening.
It does. It's tough to sit there and put a time limit on anything. Now, again, it's different
than a curfew, you mean?
Well, not a curfew. Not a curfew if you have to be in, but a time limit of how long you can be out. So we're saying 4 o'clock. So is it okay then if he's out till 3:15?
Right.
1 o'clock?
1 o'clock,
what if it happened at 3:15? What if it happened at 2:30?
What if it happened at dinner at 10 o'clock?
This is basketball and baseball especially are different animals to the sport I played, of when your game ends, especially baseball, when you stay in town for a while.
Right.
And if you have an off day the next day, you don't get out till midnight. All of a sudden it's 3 o'clock. I don't have a problem with that. I honestly do not.
It's just not how you would roll.
See, I never had to, because our sport, you leave right after the game. You go back. For me, as I said in football, Thursday night club, you go out. That's when everybody went out, and they went out. Friday night became that teetering line of, okay, you went out, but it was supposed to be more of a laid-back evening, because the thought was always 2 nights sleep is just as important as the night's sleep before a game. So don't get too crazy on Friday night. But guys did. And a lot of it, you know what? They're grown men. If they can handle their business on Sunday, so be it.
Everybody's body's different.
But what you do is you invite the possibility for more trouble. But you're supposed to be a grown man and make your decisions about that. But that's the night in the NFL. It's more of the Friday night, a couple nights before.
All the Twitter reaction to the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Be the reason they smile. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN for exclusive offers starting at $29.99. You'll see His and Hers today, as every day, noon Eastern on ESPN2. You can download the His and Hers podcast on ESPNradio.com's Pod Center and on iTunes. We could do this for 4 hours a day.
Well,
great to have you guys.
Greeny, you got to let me pay you a big compliment.
All right.
Okay, just real quick. All right, so if you remember, I think it was a couple months ago, I reached out to you about getting tickets to see David Letterman.
Yes.
Right? Because I knew that you all had been on Letterman many, many times. And I don't know if I ever told you why. One of my best friends, Suzette, she's actually over there. It was her dream to see David Letterman. She loves him. That's her favorite entertainer. And you helped that come true. And not to bring a somber note on this, but part of the reason I was so vigilant about doing it is because her mom recently passed. And I knew that this would mean a lot to her to go see Letterman. So I wanted to thank you very much because you allowed that to happen. We have tickets to go see it Monday. So thank you very much, and I'm sure she thanked you, too.
It was my pleasure. Really, the thanks go to Brian Tetta, who's our buddy from Letterman. All I did was forward him an email.
That's great. A lot of love going on here. I asked you to share some whiskey that you have online.
I still have it.
Yeah, I know you do. I know you're sharing it with me.
It's unopened. Go look. I'll bring you some. All right, I'll bring you some.
Guys are the best. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
This has been the best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNradio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The best of Mike and Mike.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions. Major League Baseball. San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
The new college football playoff.
College football playoff national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
You're home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
Hey, Mike Golic here, and I certainly love to fish. And when my dad took me out fishing for the first time when I was 6 and I caught that bluegill, I was so proud. Such a great memory, an experience everybody should have. Whether it's the first of the day or first of a lifetime, TakeMeFishing.org wants you to get out and make your first catch. And if you show them using hashtag FirstCatchSweeps, you can win an Evinrude E-Tech G2 powered Ranger bass boat. Learn more at TakeMeFishing.org.
No purchase necessary. 48 U.S. and D.C. 18 and older. Ends 5/25/15. Void in Alaska, Hawaii, and where prohibited. See site for rules.
Two of baseball's best go head-to-head in interleague action when the Tigers head to St. Louis to face the Cardinals.
That one is gone.
The pregame at 7 Eastern, first pitch at 8, Sunday on ESPN and ESPN Radio.